Morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners work session. It's Tuesday, October 5th. No, it's Wednesday. Wednesday or Thursday? It's Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday.
I'm losing track here. It is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. It is 9:05 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards is zoomed in on our Zoom platform. And Commissioner Carolina Mejia will be with us just in a moment. We have County Manager Mira Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell and our budget team present, as well as our Director of Human Resources. The morning is going to be 3 presentations regarding budget. Human Resources is up first. There will be, are there little breaks between the?
There are 15-minute breaks between each presentation.
Will we be on the same Zoom for those?
Yes.
For the public who's watching? Okay, so 3 budget presentations, 15-minute breaks in between the 2. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere if you want to watch the whole thing because it'll come back. And we'll be wrapping up this session at 11:45-ish. And so with that, I'll turn it to Robin.
So good morning.
So before,
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say happy birthday, Commissioner Mejia.
Happy birthday.
My 13th birthday.
So as we launch into the budget sessions for today, the morning is focused on internal services. So Human Resources, Central Services, and IT all provide services to the offices and departments that provide services to the public, basically. The other thing I wanted to tell you before we launch into this is I tried to do something a little different on what I call the cheat sheets, where I asked you to rank high, medium, low, and I was giving you a separate document. I'm not gonna do that again. So even though the numbers were accurate, it just created more confusion. What you will find in your binders is a page that looks like this. It is the report out of Questica that Denise prepares. And this is the one that I'd like you to mark your rankings on, high, medium, and low. So this, under the HR tab, this one looks like it's got a little red flag on it.
And the red flag is just for us to find it.
Yes.
So we don't need it. I mean, once we found it, we don't need to keep the red tag.
That's true.
Okay.
All right, so that's the one that I'll collect after the work session. And with that, I will turn this over to Maria.
Maria, you're up.
Maria, can you hear us?
Uh-oh.
Maria?
Tammy, can you hear us? Yes, Tammy's gonna.
Tammy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you check with Maria?
You're up, Maria. You're up.
All right, my apologies. My
There you go.
speaker was off.
There we go. All right.
Good morning, commissioners,
Can you hear us, Maria?
Ramiro, Robin, and the budget team. My name is Maria Ponte, HR Director, and today I will be presenting on our 2022
Maria, real
through
quick, we just want to make
budget.
sure you can hear us.
Can you hear us?
And so I will share my screen.
Hey, Tammy, can you tell apparently Maria cannot hear the board.
Maria, can you hear us?
I don't think she's able to hear us.
Hold on.
We can
It
hear
doesn't
her.
look like it's come up.
We can hear her, but she can't hear us. Okay.
Right.
Love technical.
Can you hear us at all?
No.
Oh, that's weird.
So let me log off.
Okay. And then she's going to log off and then log back on.
Okay, thank you.
My computer seems to be frozen.
Grab me when you're going downstairs. Sometime today. Happy birthday.
moments like these, I wish I had some kind of fun facts to, to
Robin,
share.
you're stylish with the masks, I gotta
Oh,
say.
Thank
Robin was
you.
probably yesterday when I was talking about different masks, you're probably, be quiet, Commissioner. I like my fully integrated cloth mask
It's true.
ensembles.
It's absolutely true. I've bought far too many of them. But
Pretty cool.
the cloth masks, if you read the mask guidance on the CDC, while the KN95s and the N95s are the gold standard, it says that cloth masks are extremely effective if they fit right and have layers and.
They have
the
layers,
filter
it's
in,
just a
yeah.
lot of people don't.
Hey, Maria, can you
Yeah.
hear us?
Most of mine don't.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
we can
and
hear you.
little
Can you
pockets
hear
for
us?
filters.
Oh, yeah, and then
Yeah.
that's pretty good. Yeah, it's just the kind of single
Maria,
layer.
can you hear us?
Not quite
Yeah.
as good.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good. So ready to go.
We can hear you.
All right, my apologies, having some technical issues this morning.
You haven't missed anything.
Quite all right.
I was just trying to get the technology going.
All right, am I good to start now?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners, Robin Romero and the Budget Team. I'm Maria Ponte, HR Director. Today with me is Tammy Devlin, our Risk Manager, and Tara Wickline, our Senior HR Analyst. And today I will be presenting on the HR 2022 through 2023 budget. Tammy and Tara will chime in if there's any questions or if I've missed anything. And I'll consider this a conversation, so please feel free to stop me at any time. All right, so for my next challenge is to share the screen. Is it showing up?
Yep.
Doesn't appear to be.
You've got it with all the toolbars and slides, but we are seeing the slide. There we
There we
go.
go. Good job.
All right. Well, good morning again. So just a quick overview of the HR department. We partner with county offices and appointed departments to provide employee compensation and benefits, employee and labor relations services, training and development, risk and employee safety, as well as property and casualty insurance and claim mitigation. We also provide some services that aren't as well understood out there, but we oversee the Board of Equalization, the Civil Service Commission, the Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials, and the Left Disability Board. And before I move on to our next slide, I just wanted to give you a few of our 2020 highlights by programmatic area. So for recruitment, I know that this is a really important topic and we certainly have experienced some challenges in it. We actually had 301 recruitments through the end of September 30th. To compare that, the highest number in previous years was 276 in 2019. So this is 25 more recruitments. Granted that some of these might be recruitments where we were unsuccessful and we reposted, but the work behind the scenes is still the same. We made 153 new hires, which includes setting them up in payroll, benefits, providing new employee orientations. We onboarded 114 temporary employees, the majority in support for the pandemic response with public health. We also saw 134 employees leave, 23 of those which were retirements. For additional benefits, you know, we spoke at length about the state long-term care program and providing an insurance option. We learned this week that we had approximately, well, over 200 employees file enrollment applications, which means we met that threshold and employees can begin doing their opt-out. Our labor relations team continues to be extremely busy. They had about 35 labor management meetings, mostly related to pandemic issues like safety, and more recently, negotiating the impacts of the various vaccine mandates. We have 3, the county, the state, and the courts. They develop procedures to notify employees and union reps of potential workplace COVID exposures. Those are the ESSB 5115 notification emails. On top of all of that, they negotiated a new contract with court security. They finalized some contracts that weren't finalized in 2020. And they're now beginning negotiations with the sheriff's deputies, corrections, and captains. And looking into the next year, we're going to have 7 contracts that expire. In terms of our safety program, they continue with a focus on educating our employees on good workplace practices. They continue to support the IMT on safety issues. They were successful in obtaining a $5,000 grant that was used to purchase 10 car backup cameras, 2 truck beds, and 2 two-way radios. Our civil service was able to conduct promotional exams and oral boards for promotional opportunities, and the Board of Equalization began offering online filing options for petitions, and they are getting lots of questions and calls this year because of the increase in property values, and so they anticipate a pretty high workload. So before I move on to the next slide, are there any questions or clarifications you'd like? Okay, then.
We're good. Thank you, Maria.
Moving on to the funds managed by HR. We have the unemployment fund. Down here, you'll see them, benefits, risk, and the proposed leave buyout fund. And so one of the things that helped me be able to explain what our asks are, and I'll go into further detail later, was just to call out what we were asking for here. So our policy level request, an executive assistant, this is a combined training pool, the leave buyout fund, and just to elaborate a bit on that, the fund would be seeded by $500,000 at the beginning of 2022. We propose a 0.7% surcharge, which would bring in $654,000. And we believe this is just an estimate because we don't exactly know how many employees we would retire, but if we pay 50% of their sick leave, it would be approximately $489,000. So moving on to our 10-year financial plans. We've already presented on these and you've already approved the rates for 2022 and 2023. But in terms of the unemployment fund, we like to keep it between 1.5 million and 2 million. So we're on track here. This is another program that we don't know how many claims we're getting, so we manage it closely year to year. Any questions on this fund?
Maria, I've got a question, but it's on the page you just flipped back from funds managed by HR. Under 2021, so for now, proposed revenues, 654,000 was the amount under that buyout. And,
yes.
And you're anticipating 489 for 2022, right? I'm just trying to figure out the difference.
That's the proposed expenditures.
Yes. Okay, but the difference is how are you doing that? And where's the difference in money?
So we'll go more into
Hundred and
that
sixty thousand.
proposal in a few pages.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep, we'll get
Yeah,
into
and
details
I
on
think
that.
you're reading the bottom line number.
Yes, I am.
No, those two different tables.
Good enough. Okay,
Okay.
maybe scanning ahead, sorry about that.
So I do have a question for the unemployment fund.
Okay.
Can you explain to me a little bit about what that is and what's the purpose of that, please?
So the unemployment fund is a mandatory state. It's mandated by the state. What the county does is we're self-insured. So instead of collecting money and giving it to the state, we collect it. And if employee is unemployed, leaves employment, or for whatever reason, they file a claim with unemployment security. They process the claim. If they approve it, they pay the employee, and then they bill us on a quarterly basis. And so it fluctuates. So our expenses there fluctuate.
Could you, Maria, say how much we paid out at the beginning of the Great Recession, roughly?
I'm not sure that I have those numbers in front of me, but I know that the fund had been quite healthy and it dipped substantially. We had laid off between 10 and 15% of our workforce. And after it dipped, we had increased it from collecting we increased it to collect 0.6%. Then it leveled off. We weren't paying as much. Then the fund grew healthy, and then we rebated some of that money.
Right.
And so that's where we're trying to manage.
So it's my understanding that in around 2010, 2011, we were paying out close to $1 million a year. Because of the numbers that were laid off suddenly. So that's the reason that they want to keep a substantial fund balance in this fund.
What happened in 2018? I mean, there was a $3 million.
That was what Maria was referencing when she said we did a rebate. And what you see is there was a substantial fund balance, and she's already mentioned that we like to keep that fund between 1.5 to 2 million is a kind of a sweet spot for this fund. So there was an excessive amount of fund balance, and we rebated to every fund that had been paying in an amount of money. Now, admittedly, that was partly to help out the general fund in that year. The general fund needed additional funding.
You both probably remember as to why we dip into this fund. Because we have an unexpected
Somebody was
double
charging
counting of
double count.
revenue in one of the offices.
Big.
Clerk.
The clerk's office,
Yes.
yeah, I remember that.
Yep, so this was a fund that we used to help us get over a hump, but we've got it down to a reasonable level now, and that's really not an available tactic.
Okay, perfect.
How many counties self-insure?
That's a great
That
question.
means that instead of collecting the money and giving it to the state in advance, we collect the money and we put it into this fund, and it can only be used for that purpose.
Right.
And then the state bills us on a quarterly basis, and we pay the bill.
You know how many
How
My
many other
question was-
counties do this?
Do this?
Can you repeat the question?
How many counties self-insure in this fashion?
You know, I don't actually know what the answer is. I can post a question to other counties, but I know that this really benefited us last year when there was the unemployment fraud claims, that the state, they paid those out, we didn't. And so when we were disputing, probably close to 80 claims, we just didn't pay that bill until they rectified it. And so for us, it has had quite a great degree of benefit because we weren't out that money that we then were trying to get back.
That's cool. It's my understanding that this is not an uncommon practice in municipalities.
And as far as I know the history, it's been in place for over 30 years.
It just seems like the kind of thing where you would always save money by pooling, and just, unless you have an unusual structure to your county, maybe because we're state government, or I don't know, I mean, unless there's something that we typically have less than the average number of claims, then maybe we lose out, but I don't know, I'm just curious. I mean, obviously it's working for us, but maybe it's a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, it's worked really well.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, Maria.
Okay. So then next we have the benefits fund, and as a reminder, we have staff that administer all our benefits programs, vision, health, dental, etc. Our goal there is to have $200,000 in reserves. That would cover 3 months of operating expenses. That was a fund you'll also see that had grown, and to manage that, we started to charge out less. And coming into 2022, because we have brought we are bringing this fund back down. We proposed and were granted to charge out our rates at 100%. And in the ensuing years, you'll see that we start to reach that 200,000 mark. Any questions about the benefits fund?
Are you gonna have a new proposal under that benefits fund for what we're paying the state, so we, on this new long-term care, so we can keep track of it if we need to put in for a reimbursement somehow?
I don't know if we'll have a new proposal, but we can certainly crunch numbers to see how much our payroll costs, how much employees are paying into that fund.
It's not
We haven't yet set that up because we don't start collecting and remitting until 2022.
Right, January.
Right, and that's not a county expense. That will be 100% paid by employees.
Well, no, the expense, I guess, would be on the county employee that is gonna have to figure all that out and keep track of it all. I'm almost wondering if it isn't an unfunded mandate on the state's part requiring the counties to send this in and remit it and keep track of it and all that. That's all.
Any other questions? So our next fund is the insurance risk fund. This is really where I rely on Tammy's 20 years of experience here at the county managing this. As you know, we don't know how many claims we're going to get. So we try to have a healthy fund balance of around $5 million. You see it starts to dip. I know that we also did a presentation just a few months ago, or maybe not that long. And we did have some increases in our insurance premiums. So there was, I think, approval. I think that went up by around 12%. And so if you have any specific questions about this, I'll probably have Tammy respond to you. Any questions?
I do. So I know that, and when we have this where we're kind of setting aside for all these years, I mean, is that taking into account the possibility that maybe, I know like the sheriff is getting, or requesting body cameras, and if that gets approved, wouldn't that reduce the risk for the county? Is it like a moving document, or is it kind of pretty set forward? Pretty set.
Well, I could respond to that, I think. Anything that the county does to reduce risk and reduce our number of claims will eventually reduce our insurance premiums.
Okay.
Because we're charged based on the cost of the insurance, and then if they're paying out more than what the cost is, they're going to raise their rates, right? So anything that the sheriff can do and roads and whatnot to reduce our risk ends up reducing our liability and therefore reducing our insurance premiums. This fund is primarily set aside to cover an actuarially projected cost of what our risks are in the event that the county closes down shop. What is our ultimate payout? And we actually have an actuary that actually figures that out for us, and that number is around $5 million. And so as you'll see the rates projected, my revenues get charged out, and you'll see in 2023, 24, and 25, the revenue is exactly what the costs are. So we want to just keep that fund balance steady. We don't want to raise it. We don't want to lower it. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Right.
Tammy, do you want to make mention of the backup cameras that you purchased and put in? And, you know, we got quite an award for that.
Yes, we realized actually a couple of years ago that we were having a lot of backup issues, paint issues, and so we installed cameras. We started focusing backing accidents in our defensive driving program, and so I think we did a chart for the board that showed the number of claims and the cost of the claims going down, and the risk pool had realized that we were doing that. We also put in for a grant to have some additional backup cameras installed in some of our vehicles, some of our older vehicles. And so that also reduced some of that exposure. And so they gave us a cute award that showed it was a backup rearview mirror. And so just to award us for taking the extra effort to reduce our risk.
Thanks, Tammy.
You're welcome.
So moving on to our challenges. It's no surprise that the pandemic has created ongoing workloads pretty much for the entire county. In HR, we've just seen lots of changes to payroll, responses from risk and safety, recruiting a lot of the temporary positions, bargaining with the units. On the topic of recruitment and retention, it's a tight labor market. We're not the only ones feeling the pinch. We have more jobs than qualified applicants. And people are leaving for different reasons. Some are choosing to retire. The pandemic has changed their perspective and they're moving on to do other things. Some, because of retirements, it creates promotional opportunities. So we see employees, there's been change between offices and departments. Some employees leave county employment, and others are choosing to relocate out of the state. Like other offices and department, we have legislative mandates that impact our workforce, and that long-term care program is one of them. There's been a lot of challenges around that and lots of criticisms, but as Robin pointed out, it's not something that the county chose to do, but we are mandated to implement it. In the coming years, we've already taken the ERP off the back burner, and we've been participating in the design workshops. But when we're actually ready to implement it, we're going to have to do lots of training. And so right now, I would say probably 3/4 of the HR staff are involved in that process, which creates less time to do other tasks. But in the end, it's going to pay off, and staff are really excited about it. And the final challenge I've highlighted here is through budget cuts last year, we lost our administrative assistant. And that position was key in terms of helping us manage the front office operations, keeping us on task with key budget dates, monitoring some of those reports for us, taking care of the employee recognition. And so a lot of that work has been redistributed. It makes me less effective when I'm ordering the employee recognition awards and things like that. But it needs to get done. So that takes me to our policy level requests. And after a year of not having that position, I've been able to reevaluate what our needs are, and my request is for an executive assistant. I also need, and our managers need, confidential assistance. If I have somebody, I receive a lot of confidential information, and I could certainly use some assistance with managing those tasks. I'll talk a little bit. I see here that we have two number ones. Numbering here went wrong, but so in terms of establishing the leave buyout fund, in April, we did a presentation where the proposal is to collect a contribution rate on payroll of each office and department. The fund we're proposing today would pay 50% of sick leave buyout upon retirement. The office or department would pay for the rest. We would start the fund with a one-time deposit from the ending fund balance of $500,000. That would serve as our seed money. And so looking at 2022, my first slide there on the fund, it highlighted more of what 2022 would look like. So with that initial deposit, the estimated collection of the surcharge, and then the estimated payout, we would have an ending fund balance of $665,000 in 2022. In 2023, collecting the 0.7 estimated surcharge, we would bring in about $678,000. We're estimating a payout in 2023 of $586,000, and the estimated ending fund balance in 2023 would be about $750,000. Again, keeping in mind, we don't really know how many retirements we're going to have, and so one of the challenges is having that crystal ball. The advantage of that is I know that a lot of offices and departments are requesting for funding for these leave buyouts, so this would provide some of that financial assistance. We currently, many of us will leave a position vacant for several months in order to be able to recoup that money that we've paid out. And for the most part, most positions would be vacant for a certain period of time, and so the office and department can use those savings for the remaining cash outs. Some of the challenges around that have to do with the cost of leave buyouts rising faster than the increase in salaries. So we'll have to review and adjust that rate annually. Let's see, what else would I like to highlight? We are proposing, we had given you about 3 to 4 options back in April, and so we're proposing the 0.7 across the board. If you might recall, we had different rates, like for the sheriff's office and public works, understanding that they have a larger workforce and they tend to just have higher percentages of retirements. So I don't know if Robin or Denise would like to add anything to the leave buyout proposal. We worked on this collaboratively, and Denise was the master behind the numbers. Hi, Denise.
Hi. I would just add that we calculated there's some complexity in this proposal, in that there are some elements that, because of accounting rules, are not actually expenditures, or actually balance sheet transactions. And so what you see in the change request is the request for the $500,000 from non-departmental to basically seed the fund, or to provide some cash flow. and then start collecting a 0.7% surcharge, and then also payouts. We did that based on history. That doesn't mean that's exactly how, as Maria said, that doesn't mean that's exactly how retirements would work. But we probably have it in a ballpark.
And Denise, we looked at a bunch of options with some differentials. Is the final proposal a 0.7% surcharge flat for everybody, or?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes.
went with the flat, same for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, and you
Right.
may recall that at one point we were saying maybe charge more for the sheriff and public works because they're bigger users. But upon further analysis, it showed that there were high points for everyone, if you will. So it seems much more fair to do a flat rate that applies to every office and department.
Agreed. And just one thing I want to add, and Maria or Tara can tell me that I'm wrong. My recollection is that it includes, it's actually buyout for sick leave, vacation, and alternative leave. But Tara's probably the expert on what was included.
Good morning. I believe the initial proposal was that this would apply to 50% of the sick leave cash out when someone retires, or 50% of the extra alternative leave cash out that employees receive when they retire. And then going forward in future years, we would reevaluate, see how the fund is doing, if the fund can support reimbursing for the full retirement cash out. We would add that in at that point, and potentially include all cash outs if the fund can support it in future years. But we wanted to start slow and make sure that we could afford our original plan before bringing everything else in.
Thanks, Tara.
Okay, and our number 3 policy level request is to establish a countywide training pool to enhance employee developmental opportunities. The request is for $100,000. And I don't know if Romero would like to add anything to that concept that was requested from the Commissioner's office.
Yeah, I know.
I have a question, but go ahead, maybe you'll answer my question.
This is the result of the budget priorities that we had a conversation with the board. We outlined all those different priorities that we would like to contemplate. And suggestion made by me is for you to consider setting that training pool for our county employees for $100,000. And obviously, we asked Maria to submit that under her department for your consideration. That's how this training pool came about, as part of the budget priorities, the exercise that we had with the board earlier in the year.
And I have a question after Commissioner.
My question's in regards to some of the, I know several offices and departments have requested training as part of their budget request. How would this line with this training pool? Like, how would that work?
Like the next one on Maria's list is about training. Yes, I had the same question.
Yeah, and that is something that you need to weigh in when you see all the proposals. Because there's $100,000, it was more of a countywide training. There are some initiatives that perhaps you may consider in training, racial equity training, and other trainings that just encompasses all county employees, not necessarily specific offices, because some of the training requests, the specific offices and departments are requesting it is specific to their functions. Somewhat of a professional development type of.
Okay, and so this is not really for professional development. So can I jump ahead real quick? So what's the difference between the training pool and then the training budget for LMS? Like, what's the difference between those two?
So one of the things we experienced during the pandemic was an increased desire to provide online training. Our training budget is it's $40,000, so it's not, it doesn't allow for us to expand our offerings. And so the 30,000 would be specifically for online content. The 100,000, it wasn't as clear yet if it was for like professional development or tuition or, so I did include the 30,000 in case the 100,000 doesn't get granted, because we would like to have more real-time opportunities for employees to log on and not just do some of the mandatory trainings, which is really what we have focused on, but hopefully expand supervisor leadership training. Those are that's some of the requests that we're getting, especially as we promote employees into supervisory positions, is helping them develop those skills.
LMS means what?
That's our learning management system. So that's what you log into to enroll for in our courses.
Share with you.
The $100,000 in your third request, where would that money come from? I mean, we've got a certain number of employees that are coming out of the general fund, some out of the road fund, some out of other dedicated funds. So how would the breakdown come of that money?
So the 100,000 is initially paid out of the general fund, and then HR is part of our interfund. So on a 2-year lag, we'd start to bill that out as part of the rates. And it would probably be on a FTE basis. So what's the general fund percentage? Maria, do you know offhand? Is it roughly 50% hits general fund, or is it a little higher?
I think it's a little higher. I want to say 57% is the number that's coming to me.
Yeah.
So in the end, maybe it might be delayed a couple of years by the time it gets there.
Exactly.
But overall, it's going to be, say, 60-40 or
Yeah,
something
roughly.
like that from the different funds to make up to
The
that
40%
100,000.
coming in to the general fund to offset this cost, yes.
And then do we try to keep track of who from roads, how many from roads versus deputy sheriffs?
No, because that becomes really complicated. And
Yeah, I mean,
we could,
I would think it would be complicated,
Right.
but I'm just trying to lessen the drain on the general fund if I can, and if you've got it broken down to 57%, I
Right.
suppose that's
I
what
mean,
it is.
we certainly could, but with cost allocation, you want to balance the precision with the just cost of collecting the data. At some point, it costs more to collect the data for the allocation method than it does
Sure.
in
I
return
mean, I
on
can see if we had
investment.
1,000 employees and 5,700 of them are out of the general fund, well, then the
Yeah.
rest are from the other.
So-
I mean, it's pretty easy
Yeah.
to do it that way, and that's just what I was wondering.
Right, and when it's countywide training, where all county employees are gonna have an opportunity, like the equity training that Romero was mentioned, then it's pretty fair. If we were doing something targeted at roads or targeted at the assessor's office or what have you, then we would wanna track the big pieces. But if it's countywide, then it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So
Great question.
what is the way that we fund countywide training now? I mean, if the board decided, or you decided, or whoever decided that every county employee, or the state, usually it's the state passes a law and we've got to learn something, where do we?
Yeah, and Maria spoke about, I think you have $40,000 available, Maria, to do the
Right.
training, which is,
Mandatory.
and that is why probably some of the training is a little bit old, needs to be updated, and perhaps some of the resources are not there to keep up with.
It pays for the ethics, the driving, the what are the others?
There's the harassment
Cyber.
prevention.
Yeah, cyber
So-
training.
So the 30, so I'm trying to just, because we have to go mechanically through these and rank them. So the 30,000, number 7, that is also, that's not a, let's train our human resources to do something. That's also a countywide application.
Correct. So quality online training it's expensive. And so to, provide more cutting edge, we have to be prepared to expend more. So right now, a lot of our online training is just focused on like safety. I know that I think it's through Safety Hub. We provide like the safe driving. We're providing harassment prevention, but we're haven't been able to provide as much training, for instance, on supervisor management training, which really reduces liability because a lot of our liability is around poor personnel decisions. And so if we can train and empower our managers and supervisors, in the end, it pays off because we get fewer employee claims or harassment claims and things like that. And Tammy would know this better, but I think that our training budget has been the same for as long as I've been here at the county. It's been $40,000. Because of the pandemic, we're not providing in-person training. And so that's how we would provide the supervisory. We had an academy. We also, communications training is real popular, like our success signals. And so in order to replace some of those with online content, that's the request, is the $30,000 to add to the 40. So I don't know if Tammy can clarify a bit about our current.
Let me just break in because we're out of time and I want to be respectful. We have 2 other presentations. My question is, if the board grants 6, you don't need 7, or 7's a backup to 6, or you want the board to grant 6 and 7? Because I kind of heard you say that if we didn't grant 6, that's why 7's there, but maybe I misheard that.
By 6 and 7, he's referring to items 3 and 4 on your.
Yeah, I'm using the change, whatever this is called, score sheet or something.
So, in terms of assessing the HR request, it was the $30,000, and then I was asked to include the $100,000, and so I don't think that we've had enough time to really evaluate like that $100,000. So it's hard to answer your question.
Because the 100,000 came from the board priorities.
But I think intuitively, I think the 100,000 is encompassing.
Okay, and then what about these 2, 3, and 4, which are more technical sounding?
So let me speak to those. Number 2 is from the insurance risk pool to pay the higher premiums that we're going to see next year. That should be a no-brainer. We've built it into the rates. And number 3 and 4 is a technical offset.
So we can make those high priorities and we don't really need to worry about
That's right. They won't affect the general fund.
Okay, I just wanted the board to hear that because we're going to try to go through these one by one. All right, any other questions for Maria before we have to break from human resources?
My only question is, I don't know if it's a question, it's a general statement. I think what Maria is asking for in some of these is to benefit the whole county, all the agencies and offices. So I don't know if it's fair to equate what she's asking for just to her, because it's really to be like training, for an example, if it's going to be for the whole county. Yes, she's asking for that item, but I don't know how we rate that, but we almost have to have some training. But then we get into, you asked the question, what are the other agencies doing? I don't know that answer either. So if they would have normally, so are they going to be asking for stuff that they would have normally paid for, and now they're not going to ask for that money anymore?
Well, that's
So
part
if we
of-
give it
for
here,
you
do we
to
have
pay.
to give it there?
That's part of your choice.
Well, yeah, but we're asking Maria to run the whole thing. If we don't give her the money, she can't do it.
That's right.
So you will hear on the upcoming officer departments, their request, and then you will be able to answer those questions. You know, there's 100,000 for training. And again, it goes back to the commissioner's budget priorities exercise, and that was my request for you to consider on your budget deliberations, because there is a need for accounting for training. And you're right, your point at the beginning is absolutely on point. And that is the nature of HR. It provides benefits to all county employees.
I think, and I may be wrong, but I think when we get these requests for training from the other groups, they're not talking about this. They're talking about like public defenders. They want legal training
And the
as
sheriff's
lawyers.
office wants.
And they want to be,
Right.
sheriffs need to know how to use their new
Right.
equipment or whatever.
Right.
And I don't think that those
But
requests are.
somewhere we have to have some ability to differentiate between what is what. I mean, we're almost like mandating to the different entities, hey, you need this training if you're equity, whatever you're talking about. Okay, well then if we're mandating that, I guess we better pay for it. You know, I mean, that's our big complaint with the state. When the state mandates something, oftentimes they don't give us funding to do it. They just say do it.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
You know, so I'm trying to balance that out as to which pot of money goes to what we're asking everybody to take training in
Yeah.
versus what they do in their individual entities.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Maria. I think we got
Thank
what we
you.
need.
Good job.
Thank you, Maria.
Apologies for the technical bumps. Have a good one.
No problem. Happens
Thank
to
you,
everybody.
HR team.
All right, we'll just take 5 then and
Yep.
jump in here. Just another moment. Great. It is 10:04 a.m. We're picking back up with our Thurston County Board of County Commissioners budget work sessions for this Wednesday, October 6th, and we're picking up with Central Services. Robin Campbell, our Assistant County Manager and also head of our Central Services Department.
Right, I will take it away. So thank you, Commissioner. As you said, one of the many things that I do here in the county is to direct, if you will, the Central Services Department. And I'm going to see if I can share this. And now make it the presentation mode. Will it work? Come on. Yay. All right. So Central Services is exactly what the name says. It provides services to offices and departments across the county. We provide a wide range of professional services to offices and departments. And by putting all of these types of services in a central department, much like IT and HR, we're able to hire staff who have expertise in their field, rather than having every office and department have their own little mail shop or their own little facility tech. You're able to create efficiencies and better service by centralizing these functions. Oversight in Central Services currently consists of the Facilities Division, where we maintain 633,000 square feet in county-owned buildings. We also have oversight of the contracted custodial and landscaping services, and we administer service levels and payments of utilities. The Facilities Engineering and Project Management team have oversight of all of the capital projects in all of the property owned by the county. Administrative Services Division has countywide mail services. We do record management and archiving for the county. We operate a surplus program. So if, for instance, you decide you no longer want the bookcase in your office, Central Services puts it in the surplus program and sells that at auction. We administer contracts and provide administrative support to the project teams and other areas of both Central Services and IT, because we do a shared administrative arrangement with the IT department. The Fiscal Services team manages an internal budget and accounting services for the department, but they have an important function countywide because they bill out, and again, not only for Central Services, but also for IT, they bill out the cost of your cell phones and the price of your computers and the cost of our utilities, and all of the other services that are provided go out countywide. So they really have the oversight and responsibility for about $10 million in business every year. And then the equipment rental and replacement is your fleet division. We maintain all of the vehicles, and we also keep a savings fund for large equipment so that we can buy it and not have to incur debt when we're ready to replace things in the county.
Robin, could I ask you something?
Sure.
You're gonna change, you're going with goals and stuff here pretty quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the facilities division, you said maintains 630,000 square feet. In our book, it says 800,000. I mean, that's a little, I just wonder if I got the right sheet of paper, maybe I didn't get an update. I don't know. I noticed on the one we had just before this,
Robin,
the date was
just read
different.
in this.
And I'm not being nitpicky, I just wanna make sure I got the right stuff.
Well, the the pages, it's very possible that the presentation is not updated to include our new square footage at Mottman. We just bought Mottman.
Well, but maybe I ended up with the right number and you got the old numbers.
It's very possible that the presentation is the old square footage prior to the purchase of Mottman.
I mean, there's no way we can keep all that straight. The last presentation said my date on it was for October 5th. Today's the 6th, and I was wondering if I got maybe a different set of material, that's all.
So we will verify which it is, Commissioner.
I mean, I'm not worried about it, I just wanna make sure we're all on the same sheet of music.
I have the same as you.
Oh, did you? Okay.
The six, I see what you're saying, the 800, and then the slides is 633.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
we're all on the same sheet of music, all of us get the same stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Right,
Okay.
Just
so, and at the end of the day,
It's a lot.
it's a
lot.
lot.
Okay.
It's more
Good
than we
enough,
have staff.
I'll go with it's a lot.
What is a
It's
few
only
thousand more than
633? You lost the budget.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I thought it was 800.
Yeah, okay.
Uh-huh.
Good enough,
Just
we'll
kidding.
just call it.
No, that's good. All right, so, Central Services, we had a budget in, 2020 where we actually spent just under $20 million, but our expenditures are continuing to grow. We anticipate spending closer to 32 million this year. In part, that is from the expenses in our other funds. And we also spent a lot of money in 2020 in response to the pandemic. And you may recall that Central Services provided a few key functions in response to the pandemic. We provided all of the PPE for the entire county, and we did some upgrades to the facilities in response to the pandemic. So there were quite a few additional costs.
Okay, I'm looking,
You have the presentation in your binder.
I've
Is
got,
that what you're looking for?
well, I'm here, I'm just looking for this paper right
Right in the
there.
middle there somewhere. It's
Uh,
after the folded
She's
sheet.
going through this, the PowerPoint, so.
There you go.
Okay,
Okay.
when you change pages, maybe just, I'm reading them. I just didn't know what page you changed to,
Okay,
okay? I was on page 1, you're somewhere else, that's fine,
okay.
I got it.
All right, so, $20 million in 2020 actuals, close to 32 million in 2021. 2022 and 23 start to come back down to closer to what we've spent in the past. So roughly 24 million a year is the proposed budget for Central Services. Here are the funds that we manage. In the facilities, we call the first one the M&O fund. It's just the day-to-day operation of maintaining the facilities and providing countywide services. This fund, as you can see, the fund balance is getting lower, and we can look at the details of these funds. The building reserve is maintaining at a steady rate. We're spending approximately what we bring in to maintain the buildings and ensure they are operating appropriately. In the engineering fund, this is your project managers doing capital facility projects. And that fund is designed to recover what is spent and no more. ER&R operations, again, this is just the cost of maintaining the fleet, the day-to-day operational costs. And then the ER&R reserve, you've got about $15 million. And again, that fund is maintaining the balance so that if anything breaks down unexpectedly, you can afford to replace them. But it is designed to be a savings account where the money will build up to replace our fleet and large equipment.
So can I ask a clarifying question on the
Please.
R&R reserves? So the current balance is 50 million.
15.
And so that is meant to, is that for all county vehicles and all county equipment that we dip into that reserve whenever something breaks down?
Yeah, and this particular fund is tracked by piece of equipment. So for car number 4567, it's got its own little sub-account. And we know how much that car cost when we bought it. We know how many years it's expected to last. We know how much it's gonna cost to replace it. Let's say this car is gonna last for 7 years. So we divide the anticipated future cost by 7, and that's how much we collect each year. And each piece of equipment has its own accounting, from the smallest car to a yard goat at Public Works, the biggest snow plows
And
and
the county
everything.
made a strategic decision years ago, because under the state law, only public works equipment is required to have an EIR. And that is by state law. The county made the decision, which I think it was a strategic decision, to include all the vehicles and equipment.
Right.
So we don't face with that larger expenditures when we need to replace those vehicles.
Right, also allowed by state law.
So for, let's say, equipment, like I'll use the sheriff, for example, I'll use him. Going back to my original question, sorry, trying to think out loud. My original question is, well, how do departments and offices have to buy into it, or basically say, I want this specific equipment to go into this reserve, or is it automatically going in there? How does it work?
So for all of our, what we call rolling stock, anything on wheels, is automatically part of it. And that is, again, in accordance with state law. It's the other types of equipment that we have choices about. So the sheriff has quite a bit of equipment that is contributing to ER&R so that we can afford to replace it when the time comes, like vests, the bulletproof vests, tasers.
And we just added a year ago or so, those two.
Yeah, so one of the requests that you may see from the sheriff is please add this kind of equipment to ER&R now, so that the sheriff doesn't come to you every 4 or 5 years and suddenly need a huge amount of money to replace what he's got.
Okay.
He'll ask to have that added. So rolling stock is automatic. Other types of things are on a case-by-case basis as the board allows. And then again, this is a revolving fund. So we establish what it's going to cost when we buy it out of this fund, and we collect the money from each office and department so that you've got full cost accounting of what it costs to run, like Public Works.
So when they add, the sheriff's office, because I remember them making that request, when they ask to add certain equipment, they're paying more for that. I mean, they're making an extra contribution towards.
Right.
It's not like
Right.
it's not like they're getting away with something or anything because they add equipment into the ER&R. It's allocated
Right.
based on the thing that they added and what the replacement cost is.
Right, so let's say the vests are gonna cost $200,000 when we replace them 10 years from now. I'm making this up. Every year the sheriff would pay in $20,000 so that in year 10 we could buy the vests. And our fleet manager, Bruce Rohrbach, who I don't think is with us this morning, he sits down with every office and department every year and goes through their inventory of what's part of this fund and goes, okay, does this still look realistic? Is this vehicle scheduled for replacement next year, but we think it's gonna last another 3 years, so let's push that out. And once you have enough to replace that car, we stop collecting on it. But every year, we review every piece of equipment in this fund and adjust the rates accordingly.
I guess my point is there ever a reason why we shouldn't agree to that? I mean, if a particular office wants to put it in and make that payment, they're kind of using us to administer their own savings account, sort of.
Right.
So why would we ever say no to that? Is there a reason?
I would not say no to that. I think it's a very prudent thing to do financially, so we don't see great big bumps in certain years. One thing that you do want to consider, though, is the offices and departments are paying for that equipment now somehow out of their budget. So when they come and say, hey, we want to put money into ER&R on a regular basis, if the board is asked to increase their budget to make that ER&R payment, what are they doing with the money that they already have that they're using to buy replacement equipment with? So my recommendation to you is to examine what is the offset, rather than just leaving that money. That becomes a bonus to that office or department when they get to pay in. But paying
If they get
in
to
and
pay in
creating
and they
a
get the
savings-
corresponding budget bump,
Yeah,
then
And also, keep in mind that this is a replacement schedule. That
Right.
but also there is an initial investment to purchase that equipment.
if they want a place to buy it
Before
this
they can-
year, yeah.
Before they can get into the ER&R. So, and that is usually what the board considers is the initial investment to purchase that equipment or whatever that is. And then getting into the ER&R becomes a little.
you know what this is like? This is like our request to take the developmental disability and veterans levy out of the general fund.
It is.
And the ORCUT argument that no, you're just basically creating more revenue, you're kind of getting away with something, so to speak, in the sense that there's then more under your levy, and
Little.
there's an analogy there because it's the same idea, I guess.
Yeah, you probably have the same.
Pull the ER&R out, you pay for that separately, now you've got your base, your
Right.
other budget, you don't have to worry about that thing anymore. You
Right.
spend it on something else.
Who did you say was managing that now?
Bruce Rohrbach.
Oh, I thought you said a different name, and I didn't know I thought, what happened to Bruce?
He is currently deployed to the IMT for the COVID response at about 75% of his time. He has been instrumental in the success of the response to COVID as part of the public health team.
Sure.
And I've been very proud of the work that he's been doing there in the COVID response, and I'm missing him badly. Shelley cannot keep him, he's got to come back because he is an amazing fleet manager. So, but yeah, we're doing our part to support the pandemic response. This is a nice conversation to have about the savings account. So I've explained how ER&R reserve works. The Central Services Building Reserve works on a similar basis, but part of what I'm going to talk about is how that is one of our challenges, because the building reserve we keep also by building, the amount each building pays in. And at one point in time, a number of years ago, the same type of analysis was done for every building as we do for each car. We'd look at the building and we'd go, okay, building one, it's going to need a roof, it's going to need a HVAC system, it'll eventually need a secure IT upgrade, to have a cool room for the IT equipment, the servers. And here is the schedule looking out 20 years to maintain building one. And then we'd calculate how much we'd need, we'd divide that by the number of years, and then that's the amount that would be billed, if you will, to the tenants of building one on a square footage basis. About 5, 6 years ago, that annual look-ahead rate setting stopped happening. So one of the things I've been doing in Central Services is working with Jason Ash to reestablish that facility maintenance plan for the major pieces. But in the meantime, in those years when that hadn't been happening, the rates for the building reserve fund were not adjusted. And that's one of the reasons that the building reserve is badly underfunded at this point in time. So that is one of the challenges that you see for Central Services. These challenges are listed by the initiative in your strategic plan. Initiative 16 is to have functional facilities of county buildings so that we have the space we need to provide services and we have safe facilities for our employees to work in. The biggest challenge, of course, which you are well aware of, is to meet the growing needs for space for all offices and departments. And for the facilities team to have the resources that they think are necessary to maintain and do preventative maintenance on the property that we own. So that is a big challenge for us.
I've got a question here, Rob.
Yep.
Again, I'm on funds managed by Central Services.
Okay.
What are the big fluctuations between, let's see, how can I best explain this? Proposed expenditures, for an example, for 2022, 22,500,000, and 2023, 7 million. That's the balance.
The fund.
Yeah, the
You're
fund
looking at
balance.
the
There
fund.
seems to be, it seems we've got big differences in numbers here. Even like Central Services Engineering, I'm just trying to figure out why it's laid out that way.
It's in a kind of a strange order, because
Yeah.
it starts at 7.
I see
22
I
in,
see
22.
you've been marking and going over and connecting, and that makes
Right.
it a little
Here's
easier.
how to read this table. So just starting with the Central Service Facilities Fund 5210.
Yes,
Your beginning fund balance on January 1 of 2022
right,
is going to be $2.8 million. That's
Yes.
my best guess at this time.
okay,
Over the course of 2 years, 22 and 23, we're going to bring into the fund in revenue $21,378,000 plus some change.
Yeah.
In that same period, we're going to spend $22,945,000 plus. And so on December 31st, 2023, after 2 years of operating, that fund will have a fund balance of 1.2 million. Essentially, we anticipate spending more in those 2 years that we bring in revenue. It's going to bring the fund balance down.
okay, so that all makes sense, but now I'm gonna equate that to actualities, which I think are probably the auditors, that new building, and the atrium. That must be where that money is designated to be spent, is that right?
The 22, almost $23 million, we're going to spend that across the whole county. That's to maintain
Well,
and
okay,
provide
so
services everywhere.
That's kind of where I'm going with this is, there must be a 10 million for the atrium upgrade.
Nope,
And
No,
not
this is
in this fund.
This is not.
it's not that, nothing in there
This is-
has to do with
This
that.
is county-owned facilities.
Okay, good enough.
Right. We'll talk about that this afternoon in REIT,
Okay, good enough.
All
I'm
right.
just trying to put that all together. Thank you.
right? So we spend about 24 million a year in central
And
services.
we don't necessarily indicate where any of that's coming from. I mean, it's coming from somewhere, but we're not
It
saying so
comes from
yet.
every office and department.
Okay.
It comes from the general fund, it comes from public works, it comes from.
And that's what we charge, like,
Yeah,
certain
That's on
off
an interfund
per
cost.
square foot,
All-
right?
Yep,
Okay,
yep, that's exactly right.
okay, go ahead, I was just,
Okay, no, that's
I
good.
was locked in
Good
on
to
something else.
understand how to read these tables. So challenges for facilities is we need more space and we need the resources to operate and maintain that space. Initiative number 9 is to support climate stabilization. That's in your strategic plan. And part of the challenge for Central Services is we're working on developing how we can use alternative fuels to meet the WAC that requires local governments to satisfy 100% of their fuel usage to be from electric or biofuels. So we're working on a plan to address that.
Let me ask a question on that, and I suppose we've been over it, but, so whatever happened to natural gas? A lot
I
of,
can't answer that question.
well, yeah, but that was
Sure,
where
yeah.
we were going
At one
a
point
few
in
years
time,
ago,
and
we were
now
going
we
at natural gas, so what happened? That was driving buses and forklifts and all kinds of things. And now we're trying to do something else, okay, biofuels, electricity. But I guess I don't get, okay, if we're gonna do electricity, and we're gonna plug in and recharge, and we've got a coal plant running in Wyoming, does that make sense? I'm just trying to figure it out. Now, a solar panel maybe makes sense. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
You can't tell
I
me.
don't have an answer to
We
that.
gotta green the grid, yeah, and that's what the Clean Energy Transformation Act is trying to do.
And that's this whack?
State law, I don't know about this WAC, I think that predates that, but there's a capacity, easier capacity to green your electrical grid than some of these other. Natural gas is better, but not ideal.
And nuclear, we can't get rid of the waste or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's the
nuclear
downfall.
is an interesting one to me, but it just has a lot of bad history of not being managed right, and it can be super dangerous to the public.
We put our youth on every nuclear carrier, you know.
Okay, so
Okay, good enough. We don't
I'm
need,
afraid
this
that,
isn't the
I
right time
can't
for
even
that.
get back to you on that one.
Okay.
That is so far
Okay, good
outside
enough.
my realm.
The challenge is almost like the question, how we're gonna be solving homelessness.
Almost, almost.
We can
Almost.
chat, but I can't answer.
Okay, good enough.
But we are working to satisfy the state laws for local government and developing a plan for that. The last item on our list is a major challenge for Central Services. We are trying to.
Let me just go back
yes.
there, this WAC, I think predates things that we're doing with like our climate plan and stuff. And
Yep.
so, whereas the WAC says EV or biofuel, I think the climate plan is shooting for EV. So I would encourage us to try to just get ahead of that and really focus on EV conversion.
Thank you. And one of the things that you see in this budget is in our capital plan, we're standing up more electric vehicle charging stations around on county property. So we're definitely trying to go in that direction. Then, sound financial practices is a major goal in the county strategic plan. One of the things that Central Services is working on is we are standing up a new section in Central Services that will provide countywide assistance in contract and procurement. I have 2 contract FTEs for that. One is filled and one we're working on looking at if it needs to be reclassified before we fill it. But we're already getting calls from offices and departments across the county for assistance when it comes to procurement. So we think that this is going to be a great new service to provide. Here are the policy level requests, the big ones. Now, I'll walk down this sheet so that we can address all of them that I'm asking you to rank high, medium, low. but the majority of them are coming from other offices and departments as requests for payment from central services. And that's why you see a lot of these are in kind of gray. So rather than working off this slide, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and gonna work off this page for ease of the
I want to
conversation.
make sure I've
Can I
got
ask
that
a
page.
question?
Yes,
What's the difference between this one and this one?
this one is operating and this one is capital.
Okay.
We need them both, Andy.
We're gonna start with operating, it's more robust, if you will.
So this is my scorecard page you're looking on.
Yes, yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna work off the scorecard.
Oh, okay, just so,
So, and this will make it much easier for everybody to follow along, I think. And that means I need to put my glasses on because the print is small. So the first item, B1003, that is a request from the sheriff. You'll hear more about it. From the sheriff to fund, this is the vehicle for additional law enforcement deputies. I'm gonna go very fast through the ones that you'll hear more about from the department that's made the request.
okay, but it's for 2 vehicles to go along with those deputies, is that right?
Yes,
Can we leave it blank here since we're gonna be scoring it on the
yes,
department? Okay.
yeah.
So I can just put a.
we can just, yep, you can put
I
a,
mean, obviously, it'll go along with,
yeah.
Put an asterisk in there.
Yeah, mark it any way you please, but if it's in gray, it's coming from someone else. Item number 2, also from the sheriff, to add items to the ER&R fund, just like we were talking about. B1010, again from the sheriff to add equipment to the ER&R fund. B10LJ01, this is tied to a request for funding for one time in response to law and justice, but again, it's from the sheriff, so you'll hear more about it from him. B1105, that is corrections. It is a transport vehicle from for the jail. B1106, also corrections, add tasers to the ER&R fund. B1115, again, corrections for a body scanner to be added to ER&R. B1207, 12 is for the coroner, he needs a new transport vehicle, so you'll hear more from the coroner about that. I'm flipping to page 2, B12LJ04, again from the coroner. It's got that LJ, that means related to the law and justice legislation, and you will hear more from the coroner. Now you get into the requests from Central Services. The first one, it is on lines 10 and 11. It's B2511, and I am requesting authorization to buy a vehicle for our mailroom operations. And what we're experiencing right now is we have one vehicle that the 2 mail delivery people share. When we add buildings, so we just bought Mottman, we're contemplating adding Pacific Avenue building. That creates pressure, and we need a second car to be able to deliver mail timely to all the offices and departments. Line 12 is B2512. This is my highest priority. It is adding an FTE to the facilities division. As we add square feet, and here's a number of square foot, 861 square feet, once we add Mottman, so that is for the addition of Mottman. The international standard for square footage would put us at 30.8 FTEs. We currently have 14 full-time positions. So I'm asking for one more to assist in maintaining and performing ongoing preventative maintenance in our buildings.
So now it says 861, so this is where we get to Commissioner Edwards' point about
Right,
633 is probably out of date.
yes, I would agree with that. Line number 13 well, 13 and 14 are the two lines related to purchasing an additional vehicle for facilities. My facilities staff don't sit in a room all day. They are on the road going to each of our buildings to do their work, and we have fewer vehicles than we do FTEs. So we respectfully request one more vehicle for the staff to be able to get out to the work site rather than use their own vehicles. Line 15 is budget request B2515. This is a reallocation, and you'll see this in the commissioner's office, but we have 2 FTEs that we parked, if you will, in central services at the time they were created. And that is the second assistant county manager and the budget manager positions. They are sitting in central services in the budget. However, organizationally, they belong in the commissioner's office. I'm asking for them to be moved to the commissioner's office in the budget. The cost nets to zero between the funds. There is an impact in the immediate year in the general fund while we wait for the rates to kick in on a 2-year lag. And if this gets rated low and not funded, we can make it work, quite frankly. This is a low priority for me, but I needed to ask for it to be fixed.
Can you clarify more on that? Because I'm confused on.
Let's see if I can.
So I understand the part of you wanting to move it to the commissioners. I don't understand the impact is where I
Explain how
kind
the
of.
money flows.
It's currently they are funded out of the Central Services Fund.
Okay,
If you move them to the commissioner's office, they will be paid initially out of the general fund. Sitting in Central Services, if we filled them, they'd be allocated in the central service rates.
okay.
In the commissioners, we'd recoup part of the money from the other funds. So they're paid either way by all of the offices and departments. Right now, they're not paid at all because the positions are not
It's
filled.
more of a organizational alignment, or realignment of those positions. Because at this point, we're not asking to create those positions. Those positions were created, they just have been remain vacant.
Right. Okay. Item 16 on this list is a request to add county-wide cameras to the building reserve fund beginning in 2023. And you'll see what this does is starts to pay for them in 2023, but they will start to impact the rates in 2024. So what you don't see is the impact to the general fund that'll be generated when these rates kick in.
Well, that's the 824,000.
Yeah, about a little over half of that will be a general fund expense. But what we've run into is we have cameras on these buildings and camera systems that are becoming inoperable. They're not working. They're breaking down.
I thought we just upgraded about 2 years ago.
We've got a security system in the works, but what we're asking it doesn't cover all the cameras in the county, only select few, and it doesn't replace ones that we already own that are breaking.
I don't know anything about that technology, but I know some people have, you know, something called Ring or something like that, and somebody's at the front door, or, you know, and it rings, or, I mean, I understand those things are relatively cheap. Now but that's a lot of money to replace them all, to put it into an ER&R fund. Some of it goes in the fund, some of it goes towards replacing.
The initial expense in 2023, part of it is to start to build the fund up to replace them in the future, but part of it is for an initial investment, and I can get you more details on this.
Well, I don't know if I want more details on it, because I don't understand it, to be honest with you anyway, but
Without more
it to be done
details,
right.
you know, I don't know how to perhaps, it's
It just seems like an awful lot of money for technology that is pretty attainable by every citizen if they want it.
it's more than just who's at my door.
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering. We don't have
So,
anything here, do we?
I see our facilities manager, Jason Ash, is on the screen. And I'm gonna ask him if he can, come in and help explain exactly what the camera request is.
Jason Ash, Facilities Manager. I think I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Edwards, but this is kind of the overall system from the head end to the storage capacity. There's RCWs we have to follow on a lot of these sites for how much storage we have. So this is just the cost estimate to replace all the camera systems. One of the major cost contributing factors of it is the gel camera system. It's past
What
its
is that? What's a gel?
Jail.
Oh, a jail. Oh, okay.
You don't know what a jail is?
I know what a jail, I didn't know what jail is.
Jail, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So that's a major portion of this cost, is that camera system is currently past its life expectancy.
To replace the system at the jail.
I guess I'm more interested in that, obviously, from a liability standpoint. I'm trying to figure out, we've made it this long with no cameras around, you know, our facilities and stuff, as far as I know. Maybe I'm on camera and don't even know it, but I'm not one that's too enthused about government watching your every move, but I do understand certain things, I mean, that are beneficial. So that just piques my interest at that dollar amount.
Right, so we will get you a breakdown of I know that my team's got a breakdown of what adds up to this $800,000. And we will get that for you before you're asked to make a decision.
Okay, maybe on Jason, one thing is that jail, that system's only been operating for about 5 or 6 years, hasn't it? And it's already,
Didn't they
what
take it
happens
with
to
them?
stuff after 5 or 6 years?
The life expectancy of these camera systems is 7 years.
Really?
Yes. We're already having trouble getting cameras for the jail.
They're too old.
Yeah, we're finding them on Amazon, luckily.
Jeez. Okay, sorry I asked.
Oh, no, I'm very glad you asked. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, good enough.
Okay, we'll get the breakdown for you. So that is the list of the priorities from Central Services and what my request as the Director of Central Services are.
Can you talk about the cars real quick?
Sure.
The vehicle so is it, I just want to make sure I understand because it's not listed as general fund, impacted fund, it's central service facilities. Can you just explain the connection to the general fund?
Yeah, so if we buy this vehicle, it's a one-time expense and then it goes into ER&R, but on a lag basis, we'll build it into the rates and it'll get billed to the general fund. We bill all of our facility costs on a per square footage basis. So roughly 60% of this would be a general fund cost in a future year.
But the 37.5 that's listed here is a general fund cost in this year, next year.
It is a central service and you can see the fund,
Yeah, I'm seeing
impact
that.
of fund, yep.
Okay, so it's the general fund impact is down the road by that percentage basis.
Yeah. Usually a 1-year lag.
Yeah, and when you make purchases like that for dedicated activity, I mean, most of your facilities are right here close, you know, so you'd get an electric car or something, so what you do.
Oh, yeah, we could use electric cars.
With
I
that.
think one of the facilities fleet is electric.
And then do they figure out the, kind of the less maintenance that goes along with an electric car, you know, maybe
That's
you
part of what
don't
our
have to
fleet,
do oil changes and brakes and,
right, our fleet division does that.
I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, no, I interrupted. Just a question in regards to the funds. So this is coming from the Central Services Fund. How much do we have in that fund currently?
How much
Because
money
it's-
is currently in the fund?
Yeah, because it's not coming from the general fund, right?
The initial price, but because it works like a credit card. I'm
Okay.
gonna pay for it today and then I'm gonna bill you for what you got. You're gonna get a car, you're gonna put it, I'm gonna pay for it, and you owe me for what I pay for. So I'm gonna bill you, you get your thing now and you'll get the bill later. It's like those,
Zero interest.
yeah,
Zero interest.
it's zero interest.
So it's really a good deal.
Is that good?
That's right. On a payment
We're
plan.
here to serve.
Right, I'll
It's
give it
almost
to you on a
free,
12
almost free.
No quite,
12-month
but yeah.
payment plan. How much is currently in this fund is in this table that you see here, and all the financial plans are in the book. But the ER&R reserve is got $15 million, but we know how much that 15 million goes with each individual car. In the building reserve, we got $7 million, and we know how much of that is for each building and what each of those buildings need, and that's not enough to do all of the maintenance that needs to be done.
Here's your 5210 plan, so it is,
Yep,
so it's,
the financial plans are here. So those are our policy level requests in operating.
2.8 is like looking at 17, parks and trails, 2.0, tools and equipment, is this like $110,000 for 2 employees? Like this is the extra stuff, kind of like with the sheriff, they need a car and stuff. I mean, what is they each need a car? Is that what we're, because they got to travel to the different parks?
Public Works will talk to you about that need, that
This
request is from them.
A request from Public Works for you to consider adding additional staff.
Right, and then line
For parks.
18 is from Public Health.
I'm
They'll
just
talk to you
curious, because I
about
mean, we always talk about the sheriff's, got the sheriff's staffing needing a lot of, extra equipment to do. If you add the FTE, you add the extra equipment, but
Right,
theirs is 62,000 for 2, and in the parks, it's 110 for 2, which just seems really high.
that is a conversation to have with the
It may not be,
departments.
it may not be just the vehicle, the Public Works request, and maybe equipment to maintain the trails.
Chainsaw,
So,
mower.
Right.
That's a different, that shouldn't really be lumped in with, as something that comes along with the FTE.
Well, that's what you
Equipment
need
for
to
the
weigh
parks
in. I mean,
Right.
whether you consider adding to new FTEs and what type of equipment, that conversation you need to have with
Right,
Jen.
so I know, for example, my facility staff, each one has their own toolkit that they take with them on the job.
I guess it
And-
is lumped in here, it's just lumped together, all that, the extra equipment to do the job.
Right,
It could have been separated, but it was obviously, if we don't fund one, we don't fund the other. Okay,
so I'm trying to be mindful of my time. I have quite a few capital requests, but you have seen those in the review of the capital facilities plan. The big items there, of course, are the courthouse is the the big one, the work that needs to be done here on campus. And I'm just very excited to report that Chris Helmer has been working with one of the companies that does energy efficiency to attempt to leverage our money. And I'll have more information about that to come. But these are all capital proposals that you have reviewed and are in your capital facilities plan. If you have questions about any of those, I'd be happy to answer them, and you do not need to score the capital requests. You can if you'd like to, but.
I have just
Take
a quick question as we move down here. Sometimes you have in the number LJ, which I take it is law and justice.
You're back to this table.
Yeah,
Yeah. And sometimes you don't, but it's
Right.
law and justice. I'm trying to figure out
so the
why.
LJ is an indicator that that's tied to that $1 million of one-time money that we got from the state of Washington to pay for one-time costs tied to law enforcement and criminal justice legislation enacted in the last 2 sessions.
Okay, so then my question on that is, if we're doing that and it's a one-time cost with that, what about if we do hire a couple of people to keep track of the public records requests and all the stuff that goes with cameras and stuff?
Right,
Then we have to pick that up in additional years?
unfunded mandate.
Yep. And are we keeping track of unfunded mandates so we can get with the county association? And
If the board authorizes that money, then yes, we would indeed be attempting to
Yeah, so
keep track of the
just
costs.
to clarify, the purchase of body cameras
Uh-huh.
are not mandated yet.
It's not mandated yet.
No, that's my word, yet.
Yeah, yes.
It may be coming in the next couple legislative sessions, but it has been going on the last couple and never has made it to a requirement to have body cams. I believe the sheriff is requesting for you to consider using the one-time allocation that we have for the state associated with the impact of the other law enforcement legislation they passed this year, for you to consider using the one time to purchase cameras.
Okay, so the other stuff, if it doesn't have an LJ, it doesn't have any, that just indicates that one fund.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
one-time
that $1
allocation.
million is available that can only be spent on certain things. All right, just to wrap up, I want to say that I was joined today, I should have started with this, I was joined today by my Central Services team, Jenny Branham, Jenny Silva Chakowski, and Jason Ash are here with me. I'm blessed with an amazing team in Central Services. They do incredible work on behalf of the county, and I'm just very proud to present this on behalf of the department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What are we grading?
The white part.
Yes, yep, it's the white part of this one.
The white part?
Second page.
Yeah.
Second page.
Second.
Oh,
Yeah,
so we don't have to
because
worry about the
You're
front
gonna
page.
see
really.
all of these when you talk to the sheriff, public works, the coroner.
I see.
You'll see those.
Shaded
Those are
ones will
their
come along
requests.
with others.
Other stuff.
Okay, so
All right.
let's take 5 and then we'll pick up with IT at, let's say 11:05, 7 minutes. Morning, back from the break following Central Services, Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Budget Work Session, Wednesday, October 6, 2021. It's 11:08 a.m. We're picking up with our third and final presentation of the morning from Information Technology. And at that, I'm going to hand it straight to the IT Director, Dennis Osorio. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Dennis Osorio, IT Director. Let me get my screen shared here. All right, can everyone see that?
Yep, you've got the toolbars and whatnot, but we see the slide.
Okay, I can go to,
Just froze up. Did he? No?
There you go, perfect.
there we go. All right, so like I said, good morning. Dennis Osorio, IT Director, and we'll be going over my budget for the upcoming year. First off, I just want to give some background on the department. We're primarily broken into 4 separate divisions. We have our desktop team, which supports all end user support, configuration, purchasing, testing, and deployment of computer workstations and network hardware. On here, you could see it showed 6,000 help desk service requests for roughly 1,200 employees. That has been our average, and I didn't know if I wanted to put in the 2020 numbers since 2020 was an outlier, but 2020 we actually had over 10,000 service requests, and we're looking at closer to 1,300 employees across the county that we have licensed on technology. So I would imagine that the help desk tickets will continue to increase, mainly just because we're continuing to bring on more systems and mature our process where hopefully all IT services start with a service request, so that we can track those metrics. Our next team is our network infrastructure team, primarily responsible for replacement of servers, switches, network infrastructure, keeping everyone connected in the phone system. We have an application support team, which has over 90 different county business applications. Same thing, I would imagine that will continue to grow as we continue to bring new applications online. And then we have our geodata team, which provides geospatial information throughout the county and for the public. And then across all of these, we do have a project manager. They're mainly focused in our large system applications, but we'll go into further. That's one of my requests is to expand that.
Dennis, could I just ask you something here? You said you have licensing for 1,300 employees or something I heard?
That is correct. That is correct. That's around what we're licensed for right now across the county.
Is that what we've got, is 1,300?
Roughly, yeah.
With,
Or some of them maybe have 2 licenses or something like that? I didn't know we had that many employees.
temporary employees also.
Temporary, we got a lot of temporary employees in public
Okay,
health.
good enough. Just, thank you, go ahead.
No problem. So here's our funds and getting into the numbers specifically. So if you look at the very top, I really want to point out the FTEs. As you can see from 2020 to 2021, it jumps around 3 FTEs. That's specifically around the large system applications. Those are project positions that are directly related to the ERP project. And they will go through the project into 2023, and then we'd reevaluate what those positions are needed going forward. The next for 2022 is one more position, and that is what we can get to later in my request, and that's for an additional project manager. And then going down to the department totals, as you can see, there's fairly big jumps from 2020 to 2021. All of these large jumps mainly revolve around the large system applications. This year in 2021, we kicked off the ERP system replacement, as well as we are wrapping up the case management system for prosecutor and defense. And then into 2022, we will be kicking off the permitting replacement. We will pay the bulk of the ERP implementation during that year as well. Any questions on those numbers?
I do. Okay, so if we've got 1,300 employees licensed or whatever it is, and part-time, are we breaking down the amount of money that goes into Dennis's operation by that same 60-40 ratio, or might there be a better split for the general fund?
So the allocation methods for IT are a little different than a few other things. So like the desktop team that he talked about, those are split by the number of computers. So I've got 2 computers. I've got no, I just have one now. I just have my little Surface. But some people have a desktop and a laptop. So so he costs double. And they allocate, right, they allocate the cost based on the number of computers an office or department has. Some of these things for large networks, it's the number of users in the system. Our accounting system is allocated based on the number of transactions that each fund incurred. So we try to use an allocation method that relates the most closely to the type of service that's being provided when we do internal services. But what's interesting about that is we do tend to hit that 60-40 in most allocation methods.
Okay, good enough, that's my question.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Dennis.
No problem. So then going down to our funds, as you can see, you can see the mirror across 21 and 22, and the big, the large hit is really the large application replacements that we're going to be doing. We have ERP, the permitting system. We're also looking at starting the ADAMS replacement next year. So all of these really hit in 21 and 22 going into 2023. And I think I was watching your guys' presentation earlier. It's set up the same as Robin's was. So if you look at the beginning fund balance in one of the first ones, 2.4 million, you see the proposed revenue and then expenditures and then the ending fund balance over those 2 years. So same concept, and I think that was explained. So and then the one addition to this, and I should point that out, is the large system general obligation bond fund that was created in order to fund these large system applications.
This is the fund when we issued the bonds last year. I think we issued the bond. We might have done that this year. It's been a long year. But we have to establish a fund to put the proceeds in. So these are the bond proceeds, and we'll spend them when the time comes. So you don't see any new revenue into this fund. What you see is the money starting to go out now as we pay for these large systems.
And that's 2 years of spending.
Yep.
And that's
Correct. And if you look at 5250, that's that besides the large application replacement, you see that's there's 20 million, 21 million expenditures. That's really the bulk of our staff, as well as all of our ongoing licensing every year. So once we get the large system application replaced and we have an annual licensing cost, it goes into that fund, and then we collect on that every year and pay it.
So just for example, IT operating fund 5250, the proposed revenue for the biennium 20 million. And that money's coming from?
That's coming from all of the various offices and departments from all the different funds that use the services.
Just about 60-40.
60-40 split, huh?
Yeah.
And it does come out to around a 60-40 split. And as Robin knows, as she's been very involved with us developing rates, we try to use the most fair and equitable rate model depending on what we're collecting for, because not everything is fair. Not everything would make sense just to use FTEs, for example. That's why we sit there and break it down by allocation method.
When you say 60-40 split, that means what? Split between what?
Roughly 60% comes from the general fund and 40% is paid from all other funds.
And is that because, like, let's say a law and justice prosecutor's office, are you saying that comes from general fund?
All
because we're
the-
funding his budget out of the general fund?
Correct.
This rates are already built on the base budget,
That's right.
because you're ready to provide the direction to include that in the base budget. So this is not a new request.
Right. Rates are at maintenance level.
Any more questions on this slide?
No, I think we're good to go forward.
All right. Then just going into some of the challenges that we'll face, and most of these you've heard of, continual improvement, education, cybersecurity. I'm guessing this will continue to be a challenge as we use more technology and the cybersecurity continues to get adapted. We're going to have to continue to bring in new tools, bring in new methodologies to fight those matters. So this is where you see some of our phishing camp that we're doing, multi-factor authentication, some of those tools that you're aware of that will continue to mature across time to make the county the safest possible. One of the next areas, and this goes into the request that I'm asking for, is developing capacity in IT projects and planning. Obviously, we still have more large applications that we need to replace. We only have one IT project manager right now. So if we want to continue to up ramp that and replace more projects as well as have some continuity there, we would need another PM. And then in improving and maturing IT infrastructure, I think 2020 has shown that we need to continue to work through this, make a robust telework capacity as that was critical in our operations, increase network bandwidth, network redundancy and resilience so everyone has access no matter what and everyone can continue operations. And then going into my the two policy level proposals, the first one, which is the most important, is an additional IT project manager. This will be to not only add some continuity to our current project manager that we have, but we currently have the ERP system in flight that she's managing, as well as kicking off the permitting tracking, which either one of those could be almost a full FTE. And then we also, as we've talked earlier in the year, we want to spin up the sheriff's application, the ADAMS replacement, which we currently do not have bandwidth to start that project. In addition to this, we have the website replacement project that we are currently looking to staff without a formal PM since we don't have the bandwidth for that. And then just other projects that come across the county that are unplanned for. A really good example of this is the Atrium project. We currently have one of our infrastructure folks taking a project management role on that. It would be nice to have more of a formal project manager so then we could have a continual framework that we're following throughout IT. Any questions on that one?
No.
Go ahead, Ramiro.
No, not necessarily a question, but just provide a perspective. And the only one project manager that we have in IT, that investment has been proven fruitful. And because project management practices are essential to determine what is it the needs that we have in the county to align with their appropriate and applicable system. You see the case management system from the prosecutor and the public defender. We took a lot of time at the beginning to make sure that we develop the needs of those offices to determine what would be the best software application that we have. The same we applied to the ERP, and we're in the process of applying the same principles to the Amanda system just to make sure that we have the right application to meet the county needs. The replacement of those larger systems are already covered in a way financially. But as Dennis explained, is the bandwidth, is the project management aspects, there's probably lag behind in the implementation of those systems. You receive a letter early in the year from the sheriff's office asking you to prioritize the replacement of the ADAMS system in his office. And the result of that conversation, I believe, is not that because the board doesn't see that as a priority, it's just the bandwidth, the resources that is needed to implement those large systems.
Third in line, right?
So I just want to provide that perspective, at least from my point of view, of how important it is to have a good project manager it will help us going through the IT replacement systems.
What would be helpful for me is seeing kind of like that priority list that we have and seeing what a second project manager could accomplish. Because when we're talking about these different projects and we're talking about a priority list, I don't know what's on that priority list, which systems need to be updated and which, so for me, it would be helpful to know, well, what's in the queue right now, right? And what's, you know, I know ADAMS came through because the sheriff sent a letter, but if he hadn't sent that letter, it would have been way over my head. Like, I wouldn't have known.
So that's great. Maybe we can provide a couple of reports. One report with a list of all the replacement systems that we have in the queue, and see the time of implementation using one project manager. And maybe the other report will be the same list if we implement another project manager. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, for me at least.
Dennis, are you talking?
I probably don't, I'm voting with her because I don't know enough anyway, so.
Yes,
So,
we could provide that. We have a, I'm sorry, Robin, we have a
Help me.
schedule.
Does help me, but I don't know enough. I don't even know.
You don't know what you don't know?
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know,
the
so.
one project manager that we have, Courtney, she's amazing. And she has, we have sucked up the majority of her time, I think, on the ERP project. Because the ERP project is huge. But at the same time, she's managed to help the prosecutor and public defense stand up the case management system. She's assisted CPED in doing the preliminary work to get an RFP on the street for Amanda. And I believe they're at least teed up ADAMS. Those are like the top 4. And what you'll see is we've got so many other systems that are in the queue and the web page replacement. It's more than one project manager can do. So I know that Dennis maintains the list of all the systems that are part of the large IT system, and we've got a plan.
Absolutely, I could submit that, and Romero, I could do two copies of it on how we would move the schedule on some of those with the second project manager on board.
Yeah, that'll be.
Make it the Reader's Digest version, will you?
It's a nice tight little list. They've given this to me before.
And is there also a timeline in maintaining this softwares that we're investing in? Can that also be included, please?
We just like our other savings accounts, offices and departments are paying into the large system IT reserve so that when the time comes, we don't need to borrow money again.
So and that goes back to this line item, Commissioner, at this table.
Right.
Goes into the operating fund. When
Some-
the system is implemented.
Some goes into the operating fund, but the money to replace the systems will go into the large reserve. But it's going into one of the reserves.
The long-term maintenance.
And that's why, so you remember, I think it was the treasurer, the costs in the treasurer's office took a big leap. And Jeff was saying that it's mainly the interfund costs that went up. A lot of the increase in the cost was from IT because we are putting the costs of replacing these large systems, the buying and replacing the large systems is one of the things that's driving our interfund costs up.
But all the interfund costs are already in the base budget that you have
Right.
set so far.
It's
So,
in maintenance
the
level.
maintenance level.
That's how come we're only grading the white, right?
Well, we're only grading the white on this sheet, so like IT, Dennis just explained the
Two
two
places,
that are his requests, but all the rest in gray, so like line 1, B0102, that's a request from the assessor to put the software into the system reserve account. The B106.
And we're not grading that at this point in time.
That's right, you'll
Right.
grade it when you talk to the assessor, because he'll be asking for the money to pay for this,
Okay.
and so on down the line.
I have another question. For the IT infrastructure area, I mean, we're talking about storage systems. I mean, why are we not investing in the cloud, since that's kind of the direction where we should honestly be headed?
So yeah, if I didn't get to cover the second one, so I could cover that and then we could discuss the cloud.
Perfect. Okay, sorry, jumped ahead.
No, that's no problem. So yeah, going into the second IT infrastructure, it's 275,000, and we are looking to essentially get all of our storage on a single storage device. Right now we have multiple storage devices. And in addition, we'll need to expand our current backup solution to make sure everything's backed up accordingly. So that's what that is. And then going into the cloud discussion, we are definitely moving forward with all of our applications to be software as a service, which are all cloud-based. But having your normal file storage in the cloud is not always as, number one, cheap as you may think, and or as usable. So this is just for our local storage that you would say. So a lot of our file storage that people use, the reason that we want to replace it because we want to make sure that our storage can be encrypted so we could have HIPAA compliance, CGIS compliance. Moving all that data out to the cloud would really, first of all, it'd be very expensive. And then it would also possibly cause issues when people are accessing it, because using a system such as a software as a service system is a bit different than just using file storage. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Well, for me, it's like, sure, it's a little bit more expensive to go into the cloud, but the protection that goes along with it and the backup, and right now, especially as we're seeing such an issue in cybersecurity, I mean, where there's being ransomware everywhere. I mean, that's kind of the security and the backup that the cloud provides. And so I'm kind of just hesitant to invest in more storage systems when we're seeing everyone else starting to go on another path.
Well, as I said, we are using the cloud, but I will say just because you use the cloud does not mean it's more secure. You could have cloud storage and it can get crypto locked just like anything on-prem. It's only as secure as your policies and procedures that you have in place. It's just living on different infrastructure.
I mean,
then that's specifically in regards to local file storage, like we're talking here. If we did move this to the cloud, we would fully manage it. It wouldn't be like a software as a service, where with software as a service, we're actually augmenting our IT staff, and they will be, and the infrastructure is managed by the vendor. When you just stand up storage, you're just paying essentially for another area where you're going to fully manage it. So there wouldn't be very many, there would be very limited security benefits. There would be very limited, any of those benefits, as opposed to thinking about applications in the cloud.
I'm going to disagree with you, Dennis, on this one, just because we're seeing kind of, I'll use the auditor's office, for example, where they're pushing for, Homeland Security and all of the departments are requesting that the auditor be moved on to a more secure system. And they're recommending for her to move inside the .gov cloud because of that security that it would offer.
As I said, you can move to any cloud you want. You still control the policies and procedures and access. And if you have staff that go and click on links that are not appropriate, it does not matter where it's stored.
I'm in La La Land here. It's kind of comical. Ty and I were just talking about the difference in the age group of our board, and I'm going with you.
But if you'd like,
I'm in the cloud, Dennis. So
Commissioner, if you would like, I could.
I'm in the middle. I
gave you
understand what all this is, but I don't, not to the point that I have an opinion about it. I have to defer to my,
I could get a cost. I mean, I think that we could get at least rough cost on our entire storage and see what that would cost in a cloud environment for just regular file storage, like what we're asking for here, and you'd be able to see the difference.
I guess I'm gonna just, my 2 cents is that whether this is in the cloud or not in the cloud, this seems like a pretty important thing. I don't really like the notion that we've got all this data, fragmented in different systems, and just seems like that doesn't seem secure, and that doesn't seem like would be a best practice and put us at risk of whatever, litigation, theft, all the different risks that we have to manage. So I'm hoping that's a lot of money, but seems like something not to be looked over by the board, I guess I'd say. But I don't know. I don't have the answer to what's the best system. So, but yeah. So any other?
And as I said, this isn't only storage. This does actually add to our backup solution as well, so we can consolidate all of our storage and then consolidate everything on the same backup system that we're using, which does actually provide ransomware protection. It does provide some security aspects to just regular file storage that we have.
I got no comment.
My computer, my personal computer history is checkered and tragic. So I'm gun shy and always willing to invest in better backup and security. So
Dennis, what I'm hearing perhaps is the board would like to see how much it will cost to move into the cloud base for the storage, just to have a sense of the cost. And I think that's probably what I'm hearing. And we'll follow up with that, and then at that point you'll have a conversation.
okay. Is that it, Dennis? You gonna be the first department to finish early?
That is it.
All right, I appreciate the information, and it's pretty understandable what you're asking, so appreciate the presentation. Anything else from the board?
Some
Thank you.
people we just can't do without,
Yeah.
basically.
Truly. Yes, this is, and so since we have a minute, I'm just gonna take this opportunity after you've heard from 3 of your major departments that provide internal services. This is the kind of business that you cannot conduct county government without.
Oh, yeah.
So when an office or department, or forgive me, a lake management district says, why am I paying internal service costs? This is what they're paying for. It's to have their computer, it's for their files to be secure, it's to have the staff person get paid in payroll, it's to make sure their benefits are appropriate, it's to have a building to work in and a car to drive if they've got that kind of a job. Those are what the internal service costs pay for.
But if we, just to take your example, as I understood it, different pieces of that are calculated in a different way.
That's right.
So if we took a lake management district, for example, I would imagine they're not being billed for office space because they don't have an office here.
They have
They are
a
being
staff
billed for office.
person who needs
provide
an
any
office.
For the staff that supports,
That's right.
But that staff member does other stuff.
lots of other stuff.
So
And that's what's
the
based on that
fraction,
percentage.
the
could
fraction
be
of her
point-
FTE that's charged to the lake management district is the fraction that they pay
So
of
that
their
person's
percentage
time is
of
sort of
their,
divvied out.
that's exactly
And that's
right.
what, and I think that the last testimony you received is they don't like the percentage allocation. They
Right.
want to have a true cost. And that is extremely complex to
Right.
just have track a true cost on a monthly basis just for one.
Like for example, if it was 0.2, but they're trying to say that person didn't really spend 0.2 of their time, if they only spent 0.1 of their time, we shouldn't just go with this.
And also,
Is that the argument?
Yeah, and also, there is 2 sides on every story. Because if we were to be able to go through the process of a true cost, right? Then Robin's time that she spends on the lake management district should be charged. Jennifer Walker, the director who spends time on the lake management district should be charged. I should be charged my time. And at this point, we don't charge that.
It is. It
Because it
is
becomes
totally a
infinite.
rabbit hole. And this is what I was saying earlier. There comes a point in cost allocation where it costs more to track the
To figure it out.
finite cost
Yeah, you gotta
than
kind
it
of
does
ballpark
in
this too.
benefits.
So, and that's what, it's just a balance, right? And, they have a perspective, the percentage allocation may not be true cost, which they do have a good argument on that.
Right.
But if we go to a true cost, it's gonna take us time, and that tracking the true cost is gonna cost them more.
Right. But
That's just
and
my
I don't mean it all to pick on the Lake Management District. That's just one that you're hearing a
Oh, yeah,
lot
it came
from
up
right now.
recently, so,
But every office and department, you hear them complain about their interfund costs. This is what they're paying for. It's the cost of doing business. And, you know, if they'd like to turn in their second computer, if they don't need their cell phone, turn it in. Don't create so many transactions in the payment system. Don't need as much legal advice. I mean, you pay for what you use in these types of services, and the county can't do business without them. So when people come and say my internal service rates are too high, or I shouldn't have to pay them, or I heard an elected official say one day, why should I have to pay for turning on the lights?
So why
Do you
not?
want electric?
Give them a candle.
If you don't
Candle
need
when
the
they say
lights
that.
to do business,
But who's
I'll
gonna pay
pull
for the
plug.
candle?
I'll buy a candle.
So is this a type of, I mean, you know, county government's unique in that we've got our, you know, half of our groups are elected official led.
Yeah.
If you were the city of Olympia, for example, would you still go through all this to department budgets this way, or would it be more
Yes.
centralized?
No, it's, the services are centralized, but you allocate the costs out for two reasons. One, you wanna know what the real cost of doing business is for any given office or department. You can't know that if they're not paying their facility and computer costs. And then the second reason you do it is it's the only way we can tap into restricted funds. Your alternative is to pay 100% of these costs out of the general fund. And that would not be advisable because you're getting 40% back roughly out of all the other funds, including the vast majority of grants that we receive. And the auditors look to see if we're appropriately allocating costs.
That makes sense.
Fair and equitable.
Yes, fair and equitable.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. We're adjourned for the morning. We'll be back at 1:30 with Commissioner's Office, non-departmental and other funds presentations. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.